Are you hiring as well as you could be? In today's video or podcast, wherever you're watching or listening to this, you're going to get 3 tips on making sure that you hire really well. And I'm going to explain why that's so important, possibly the most important thing in teams and organizations. Hey, I'm Jonno White. Welcome to Leadership Question of the Day podcast. Thank you for joining me. And I just want to say I appreciate you subscribing, following, liking, sharing. If you haven't done that, please do that now. Tick that button. That helps us to get the word out when you subscribe. It also it keeps you in the loop, but it also helps us to get the word out to more people and help them become the best leaders they can be. So today's question is about whether you're hiring as well as you could be. And I remember when I started coaching leaders, and I was interested, going, wow, I wonder what's going to happen when I coach leaders and finally get to really sit across the table from leader after leader after leader and over the phone and coaching leaders. What are they going to be saying? And there's always a lot of different things, right? Different contexts, different challenges at different times, things like COVID. But I have to admit, I've been really shocked at the amount of conversations I've had and continue to have that are just all about difficult people. It's why I wrote my book, Step Up or Step Out, How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. And the whole point of writing that book is, I reckon 50% of my conversations, people were bringing up, I just don't know what to do about this person. And so this kept happening time and time again. And, I am always happy to give the best advice I can. But the other day I was standing in a room with a team, and we were having a chat about this very thing. We were doing a session on how to do conflict well and how to deal well with people, particularly when they're difficult people. And they asked me, a bunch of questions, and I could tell they were really just wanting to get to the root of it. And so I said, hey guys, I'm going to be blunt. If you want to avoid these issues moving forward, we can talk about this all day, but the number one thing you can do is stop hiring difficult people. Because when you hire a difficult person, which is really a person who has unrealistic expectations, you're setting yourself up for a challenging time, no matter how well you manage it. Everything you do is uphill. It's like trying to run a marathon uphill. It's possible, but it takes your legs out. It's so challenging. And I was just standing there and I love working with teams that can handle that bluntness. And I said to them, you've got to stop hiring difficult people. It's the biggest thing you can do. Hire better than you already are. There must be more you can do. There must be more you can do to make sure you're hiring people who have the humility and teachability. They have realistic expectations, who have emotional intelligence, so they're not just stomping all over all of your stakeholders. And the room was silent, but then people started nodding, and I could see that it was getting through. This is so important. And so I want to give you 3 tips, because if you can nail this and hire as well as you can, it makes everything else in business, in not-for-profits, it makes everything else organizationally so much easier when you hire people who are less difficult to work with. So the first tip I want to give you is all about the ideal team player. If you're going to go and read a book, well, I did mention my book, which I would recommend, but I'm slightly biased. Patrick Lencioni has a wonderful book called The Ideal Team Player that is one of my favorite books, and he's definitely my favorite leadership author. The Ideal Team Player goes through the 3 traits that make someone a great team player. And in my experience, difficult people aren't good team players. There's a direct correlation, and as a result, if you can search for people who will be great team players, you're much more likely to hire better and to avoid hiring people who will end up being really challenging to manage. So the ideal team player: humble, hungry, people smart, or emotionally intelligent. They're the 3 traits, but read the book and use those in your hiring. The second tip that I'd give you when it comes to hiring as well as you can, are you hiring as well as you could be, is to use a panel. A lot of people, when they're hiring, just do one-on-one interviews, and I think you lose a lot of perspective and you lose a lot of information when you do it that way, because sometimes we have blind spots as leaders, and so if it's just us chatting to them, we can miss something. there's a few simple ways you can use a panel. Yes, the panel in the room, but you can use a panel creatively. First one is, who's making the first contact? Maybe you're in a small business and it's you, but maybe you have an executive assistant, or you have a HR manager, or you have someone who's managing HR as part of their role. Give them the task of talking to the candidates and giving you a gut feel. You're not going to base your whole decision on what they say, but find out, and particularly when you're thinking about humility, which is one of those 3 traits in the ideal team player, find out how they treated the person. One of the best warning signs that someone's going to be really challenging to work with is that they're lovely to you, they're fantastic to you, but they're dismissive and not necessarily rude. If they're out and out rude, then that is a massive red flag if they're really rude to your executive assistant or to your person who's involved in the HR process. But if they're just a little bit dismissive and they don't really lean into that person, not very warm to that person at all, take note of that, because that's what they're going to be like to work with for other people and for your other stakeholders. And so that's one way you can do it. And then the other way is to literally have a panel in the room and find different people. Don't get the mini-me versions of yourself in the room. Look around you. Who on your team is really different? Like, you want to pick people who have the values of your organization and are quite emotionally intelligent people, ideally. But you also want to pick people who are really different to you, so that both of you, ideally 3 is great. I think 3 gives you 3 different perspectives. I tend to get a little nerdy about this and actually look at the Enneagram, disc profiles, Strengths Finder, and try to put different people on the panel who are a spread of those different personality profiles. Myers-Briggs, if you use that. So with the Enneagram, I'm a 1 with a 9 wing. So when I've done this before, I've really sought out to find people. Like, I had someone who was an 8 with a 7 wing, and I had someone else who was a 3 with a 4 wing. And I knew that those, if you don't know anything about the Enneagram, that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but they're just different types of effectively personalities based on the Enneagram, which is a profiling system. And by looking for those different types of people, it just meant that when we got in the room and we had a panel, I knew they were going to bring a different angle just because of how they're wired. But also, DISC is great. So you've got DISC. So I'm an SC. So it's great for me to always think about, how can I get an I or a D in the room? Because that's not a perspective I have in terms of decision making and approach. And there's things that I won't even notice that will drive them insane. There's things that might drive me insane that when we have a discussion afterwards, they go, really? Oh, I didn't think that was that bad. And so when you have a panel, also finish your hiring conversations, whether it's over Zoom, whether you're doing phone calls, whether you're having a face-to-face meeting with a panel. Finish your conversations with finish those interviews with a conversation with your panel about what everyone thought. That's a great way to just have a quick debrief. What do we think? And just go for gut feeling. What was your gut feeling? Because someone will say, I can't put my finger on it, but there just wasn't something right. And that brings me to my 3rd tip, which is about opportunities for gut feeling. You've got to give yourself opportunities to get a gut feeling about someone. And there's intentionality required in that. You can't just jump in there into one interview and rely on that. My recommendation would be to do as many things as you can to give you and others a chance to get a gut feeling about the person that you're looking at hiring. So there's really creative ways you can do that. One of my favorites that I've come across, wasn't my idea. There's a guy who does a lot of this sort of work around human resources, who works with Arrow Leadership Australia. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I just want to honour him for this process because I think it's really genius, is to have 5-minute conversations over the phone. Just a 5-minute conversation. The beauty of that is you're keeping it really short, and the whole goal is just to find out a little bit about them. That's what you're talking to them about, but really you're getting a vibe, you're getting a gut feeling. And most of the time it'll be yep, but every now and then you'll have someone where that quick phone call saves you a lot of wasted time, because you just go, oh, there's something just not at all sitting right, or and so you go into it looking for that gut feeling. As I mentioned before, you give people around you the permission to say, I want you to tell me what your gut feeling is, okay? and you just look for green lights. Yep, green lights, and you pay attention to red flags. When someone in your team goes, oh, I don't know, pay attention, because sometimes there's something that's grating on them that you need to overlook, but a lot of the time there's something really good there. So you've got to give yourself opportunities for gut feeling so that you can rule people out. Too often we zoom in on the skill set. Oh, they'll be able to smash this job out of the park. And who are the people that drive you insane in your work? Who are the people that prove to be the most difficult people ever to manage? It's got nothing to do with those who didn't quite have the experience or skill set. It's got everything to do with a lack of teachability, a lack of emotional intelligence, arrogance and pride. Those are the things that make people an absolute nightmare to work with. So why don't we focus more on those at the start? They're the 3 tips I want to give you and leave with you, and I really hope you can go and take your hiring, whether you're in a multinational company with 10,000 staff, or if you're a small business and you're looking at hiring your very first person to come on and work with you. Hire as well as you can. And if you can hire, if you can answer that question, are you hiring as well as you could be? If you can go, yeah, I am, I promise you, this is the game changer for organizations and teams. Do this process exceptionally well, and everything else gets easier. There's obviously everything else you've still got to do, but oh boy, it is easier when you get this right. So if this has helped you to get clear on anything in your leadership, just comment with the word clarity, and wherever you're watching or listening. And I want to thank you again for subscribing, following, liking, sharing. If you haven't already done that, please do that right now. Tick the box. It helps us to get the word out to help more leaders become the very best they can be, and it keeps you in the loop with all of our content. We've such as our 7 questions on leadership, which 1,400 leaders around the world have completed, and it's free. It's up on the website, consultclarity.org. You can go and literally just immerse yourself on our website in all these amazing interviews with leaders from around the world, all different sectors, all different roles. That's the sort of content we want to bring to help leaders to become the very best they can be, to invest in you. So thank you for hanging out. I always appreciate it. I don't take it lightly. Your time is valuable, and I can't wait to hang out next time. Cheers.